let's start with this hands-on that, as you can see in the title, is about how to install and configure your own instance of this generic enabler, the Keyrock generic enabler. This is a hands-on that we have designed because we receive a lot of requests, a lot of dApps using the FIWARE forums, asking us about details regarding this thing. No? It seems there are many people that wants to have their own instance of this generic enabler in order to manage their own groups of users and in order to manage identity in a more, let's say, private way than the way you can do using the public instance of the FIWARE lab. Okay, so in this talk we are going to explain how, from scratch, how to install this component and how to configure it. Yeah, giving you some tips about the more frequent configuration issues that probably you will face with. Okay, my name is Álvaro Alonso. I'm part of the security chapter in FIWARE. My colleague Federico is also with me. He will explain the low-level details about this configuration. And yeah, just to know you, I would also like to introduce my colleagues Joaquin, Pascal, and Cyril that are also part of this chapter and in charge of this generic enabler and other generic enablers that we also develop, like the Ausita Force generic enabler and the Vilma generic enabler. Okay. So let's start with this presentation. I will explain a little introduction about yeah, the main reasons that you would have in order to start using this component, and specifically to start using your own component, not the public instance of the component we are offering in FIWARE Lab. Then I will just do an overview of the Keyrock architecture, because it's composed by two main components that I think is important to you to understand the internal architecture of the component in order to start with the installation and configuration later. This is a part that my colleague Federico will explain you. So the first question is, of course, why do I need an identity manager? Okay, because it's clear why we use identity manager in FIWARE Lab. Probably you already attend our speak yesterday, in which we basically introduce this concept of having a single entry point of identity in order to use all the services included in the FIWARE ecosystem. So in the same way, when you have a Google account, you are able to access all the services that Google is offering you using this single account. You have to log in once, and then you are able to use all the services in the Google ecosystem. In the same way, Google provides this functionality. We also provide this functionality in FIWARE, allowing FIWARE users to, having a single account, use all the services we are offering. These services are, on the one hand, in the running instance, the public instance we are offering in the FIWARE Lab, but also the other generic enablers that we have designed in the scope of this project, of this community. So every generic enabler that is designed in the scope of FIWARE implement a set of security constraints that allows FIWARE users to use them using this single identity. Okay? So if you are thinking on deploying your own security infrastructure using your own instances of your generic enablers, and you want to have your own group of users, okay? You want to manage your own group of users, probably you will need to install your own instance, okay? So sometimes you ask me, okay, what do you recommend to me? To use the FIWARE Lab public instance or to install my own instance of Keyrock? Okay, so it obviously depends on the use case. If you want that all the users that have an account, that already have an account in FIWARE Lab can access your services, you can use the public instance. But if you want to have your own private set of users and manage the things as you want there, probably the best option is to install your own instance and then start creating your own set of users, okay? So this is the reason of how to install in your own instance of this identity manager generic enabler. We have put here Keyrock because Keyrock is the implementation of this generic enabler, the main or the reference implementation of this generic enabler, Keyrock. When you install this instance, your own instance, you basically will have this set of features, okay? You will be able to manage users. You will be able to offer to your users the possibility of register in this instance, and also the possibility of grouping the users in organizations, having the possibility of assign roles at organization level and so on. You will also be able to manage applications and OAuth, giving to external application the option of managing users and permissions based on the OAuth 2 standard. And of course, identity management in IoT. So if you were yesterday in our talk, you probably already know that we have recently introduced the possibility of authenticate also IoT sensors. So this is, of course, included in Keyrock. This is a thing, OpenStack services, this is a thing that you can also use with a Keyrock instance, because as we will see later, Keyrock is totally based on OpenStack. We have used Keystone and Horizon projects to develop these components, so we have full integration with OpenStack services. And finally, a set of admin tools that in the public instance of Keyrock, obviously you cannot perform because you are not an administrator of that instance, but if you deploy your own instance, you will be able to do this kind of administrator tools. So let's do a quick overview of the architecture. As I just introduced, this component is based on Horizon and Keystone. And of course, we have a database in order to introduce persistence to all the things we are providing, okay? Horizon is the dashboard of OpenStack. And we have taken this component, this vanilla component, and introduced several things we need to be compliant with the requirements of FIWARE, okay? This is, of course, used for the front end, and we have added several extensions that are, these ones are the main ones we have added, the OAuth2 driver, reCAPTCHA in order to add security to the registration, management of FIWARE accounts, these admin tools, and of course, a driver that allows the integration of this component with the OAuth Force enabler, that is a component that allows you to manage authorization in the external applications, okay? Regarding Keystone, is the backend component, and again, we have taken this Keystone project of OpenStack, and we have added a set of extensions in order to support OAuth, STEAM 2.0, and also two-factor authentication and user registration, okay? Later, my colleague Federico will enter in details about these extensions. Finally, regarding the database, the default behavior is using an SQLite for development purposes. And for deployment, we just recommend MySQL or PostgreSQL. But of course, you can use every database that is supported by default Keystone, okay? We have not introduced changes here, just several modifications in the default Keystone tables in order to support the new things we have introduced, okay? So this is just an introduction of this architecture. And now my colleague Federico is going to enter in the real part of this talk that consists on the installation and configuration of the component. So.
Thank you, Álvaro. Yeah, first of all, since this is supposed to be a hands-on, I would like to show you just something like a starting point so that you can follow me. I see most of you are with your laptops, so you might want to follow me. I would like to show you okay. I would like to show you the FIWARE catalog, because this is the starting point that we recommend for those of you who want to install Keyrock generic enabler. So you would just have to head on here to the security chapter. You have here all the enablers, those who attended our talk yesterday. So the rest of the enablers are also here, but now we're interested in Keyrocks, which is here, over here. And you add here all the information to get started. So you can access the source code from here, which is in GitHub. You can access documentation from here. I just wanted to show you, first of all, this before we move on to the rest of the slides. So now we can do so. Right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, so documentation and source code. You just saw it in the FIWARE catalog. We have, I mean, we really made an effort to make the documentation as clear as possible. We have this quick installation guide. We also have a detailed guide. We appreciate any comments relating the documentation, because we want it to be really to really help you guys when using Keyrock. So any comments or feedback will be really appreciated. As I commented, the code is available in GitHub. We have 3 repos. We have just one generic FIWARE IDM repo, which has to do with just to serve as an entry point for the component. If you ever need to open an issue, I hope you guys never need to do so, because everything works fine right there. And we also have our 2 forks of the vanilla, Horizon, and Keystone components. Álvaro just told you that the architecture of Keyrock is based on this one. So these are the forks we use for installation. And of course, as well as with other generic enablers of the FIWARE platform, you can find the API, the description of the API in the blueprint format in API. Right? So let's move on to the installation. The installation of Keyrock has to be done separately regarding the 2 components. So we recommend installing first the backend. You can see the steps in the slide. It's pretty straightforward, I think. So first of all, just installing the Ubuntu dependencies. We have fully support of the 14.04 LTS release that is fully supported, but actually 16.04 should also work. I mean, my development computer, I use 16.04 and I have no trouble. But we are still making these tests to make sure that the compatibility is 100%. That's why this is here stated that it should work. It should. After that, just getting the code from GitHub, installing the Python dependencies. One important thing I'd like to remark regarding Python, as Keystone, those of you who have worked with Keystone before, it's a Python-based project, so we use also virtual environments to make sure that our dependencies will not have a conflict with other ones that you may have in your environments. This is why we use this. And finally, create a configuration file. We provide a sample, some template, so just you can reuse that to have default values. But later on, I will just tell you something more about this file. So it's just these 4 steps. And this final step, create the tables and populate the database, is really important. As Álvaro just told you, we have developed several extensions of Keystone to support different functionalities that we needed for the purpose of this generic enabler. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that there is no other option but to make the migrations extension by extension. So sorry about that, but this is how it works. You see that there is a first population that will make all the Keystone Core migrations, right? And after that, we got one migration for each of the extensions we developed. So we got the OAuth 2 extension, which is in charge of this authentication mechanism that we explained you guys yesterday. Then we got the roles extension, which is in charge of the roles that users may have in your application. So as you know, in Keyrock, you can define your own roles, assign permissions to users. So this is the extension in Keystone that is in charge of that, which has almost not much to do with the Keystone roles themselves. This is something different. I wanted to remark that. Another extension is user registration, which is in charge of allowing users to register by themselves. We also ask them to click on a link they receive by email in order for their account to be activated. So this is in charge for that. Two-factor authentication, which is actually something we are rather proud of, because I think that the latest releases of the vanilla Keystone support like time-based authentication, but this two-factor authentication we released, I think, before they did, and it allows some more features. And finally, this endpoint filter extension, which is in charge of some functionality related to the cloud. So after all of this, we got like one final step before we're all set with Keystone that has to do with populating the database with default data that is needed for the Keyrock to work. One important thing here is that one of the things that is populated in this step is an account that Horizon, later on I will say this again, because this is rather important. There is an account that Horizon uses to perform certain requests to the backend. Why? Because of the functionality that, this generic enabler has a graphical user interface. So sometimes the front-end component needs to make requests to the backend that normal users cannot do. It's just a matter of the policy of Keystone. So what we do is that we create a special account for the front end, which we call this IDM user, right? And in this step, you can provide a password for it. So this is the only thing that changes in different instances of Keyrock. That's a good news, because you won't have the same account for all the services, but for all the instances, sorry. But you have to make sure that you configure it right. And that's it. So once you follow these steps, the backend would be installed, and we can move to the front end. Yeah, thank you for interrupting me. Yeah, feel free to do so. Yeah, well, actually, that's like, you just make a slight spoiler, because later on I will tell you that this is like the step-by-step installation, but there is actually a script we provide for you guys to make it easy. But I thought it was interesting to tell you how it works, because maybe there's an extension you want that won't fit your use case or whatever. But yes, the answer is yes, there is a script later. Yeah. Well, we try to keep up to date with the OpenStack releases, but right now I think we are in a kilo release. So that's a couple releases ago. But the thing is that both projects have kind of diverged. So there are things that we do have that they do not, and the opposite. So we are working on that to keep aligned with the OpenStack community, because we think it's very positive. But in the meantime, we are still with another release. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I will just, after installation, I got some slides regarding configuration, and I will tell you about configuring the database. One thing that I didn't mention, and is also interesting from what you said, is that as Horizon and Keystone are different, let's say, subcomponents of Keyrock, of course you can install them in different machines, and so the database. So thank you for that. Yeah. No, we haven't tested. We just tested with Ubuntu. But as I will say before, for example, Álvaro just told you about, we have support for both MySQL and Postgres. But in the beginning, we only supported MySQL, and someone dropped us a line saying, I would like to make it work with Postgres, so we made it work. So I would like to highlight the idea that we want this to be useful and to fit your use cases. So whenever you feel like something is not supported or could be improved, just feel free to drop us a line, and we'll see. Maybe you can make it as a contribution or whatever. So, okay. Regarding the front end, Horizon, the process is very similar to that of Keystone. However, there is no population steps, so only these 4 steps. Ubuntu dependencies, getting the code, configuration file, which is now in a different location. Those of you who have worked with Vanilla Horizon before, you will know that it's a Django-based project, so it's pretty neat. And finally, Python dependencies, just again. And that's it. This last line, of course, is about running a development server. So I will just, at the end of the presentation, give you some hints about production environments. But in the meantime, this is just for development, right? So the good news, this guy here who asked me about installation script, yes, this is good news for you in case you just don't feel like making the step-by-step installation. We provide 3 different ways of installing. The first one is the bash script. It sets up some defaults, which are over here. We just set a default IDM password for this IDM user, so my recommendation is that you change it afterwards. But anyway, you can change it in the script also. This is the script that we actually use to create the images in the cloud portal. So it isn't written in the slide, but remember that you have also the alternative to just pick one instance of the Keyrock component right from the cloud portal. If you want to install your own, this is your way, but you have also the other option. As you see, we also have the Docker image, we think is really positive. If we have time for a demo, I will later try to show you how the Docker works, because it's pretty straightforward, and also Chef Cookbook. So now let's move on to how to configure Keyrock. As Álvaro told you, this is about giving you some hints or the most useful and typical configuration things here. But again, whenever you want to ask something, just say it, or like before. So in Keystone, the Keystone configuration file is very, very long, actually. So I wanted just to highlight 3 main things that I think that you will find interesting. First one is the admin token. This is a token that you can use to bypass authorization in Keystone. So it's something very, very critical, and the default value is admin, so you'd better change that. And also the admin ports and the public ports. By default, we use port 5000 for the public one. And apart from this, remember that in case you've need to change something regarding security, regarding authorization, regarding roles, all of this is handled by the policy JSON file. So this is how Keystone, how vanilla OpenStack Keystone works, right? But it is true that the configuration that is here is the one that we have designed for the purpose of FIWARE Lab, for the purpose of most use cases. But it's true that maybe in your use case, you will need some rule to be less severe, say, I don't know, you can do it from this file. Configuration of the front end, I think you will guys use more that, because since Keyrock is the only component in the security chapter that has a graphical user interface, we put great effort in this part of the component. We have many configuration items, so I think you will find this more interesting. First of all, the credentials of the IDM user. So this is a configuration that has to be done in both components, because in Keystone is where the account, the IDM user account is handled, but also Horizon is the one who uses this account, so you have also to set up the credentials. We actually receive, believe it or not, we receive several requests of not working Keyrock because of a wrong configuration in this site. Because if you don't set up this right, it just won't work. After this, we got reCAPTCHA. We have support in Horizon for reCAPTCHA. I recommend you enable it, guys, especially for production environments and preventing undesired registrations and so on. You can do it here. We actually provide some default keys for development, but you should go to the Google reCAPTCHA page and get your own keys. Last thing here in this slide is the account expiration. The first two settings regarding this, which is the duration of the trial and community roles, you may not, maybe you won't use that unless you are interested in managing also a cloud infrastructure with Keyrock. But for the purpose of users, there is another setting, which is this user password that we introduced real lately. That means that whenever this amount of days goes by, users will be asked to change their password when logging in. This is a feature that we find really interesting. We just implemented it, and we are also trying to contribute it to Horizon's OpenStack, because believe it or not, they have some support of account expiration, but you need to contact an admin user, as far as I'm concerned. And so this way, we allow users to replace the password themselves over here. And finally, just two more settings. First of all, we just, I think a couple or 3 releases ago, we added Ajax pagination to Horizon to make it work faster and smoother. You can set up the page size here. And finally, one thing that is really important in case, especially if you want to set up authorization scenarios like the ones my colleagues talked about yesterday, you have to set up also Horizon to work with your instance of AuthZForce generic enabler. So you can do this also from this file. So now, as I said, this was just like a brief overview over the most important settings. Most of them were for development environments. So I would like, finally, and before the demo, to give you some hints on production environments. So I just wrote here some do nots and do's in case you want to take a picture of that. Basically, just don't use just use Apache or some, well, we recommend Apache, but maybe you want to try some different one instead of the development server for the Horizon component. We recommend enabling reCAPTCHA. I just told you about that. And also using a production-ready database engine, not SQLite. I will show it later. So let me show you in detail. For example, this is what you were asking me for, how to set up a remote database. You can do it right from the Keystone configuration file. Here the connection is to MySQL, but it will work the same. Just remember to grant all privilege. I think this is most of how databases work. So just set it in the Keystone configuration. Remember that even though you have already installed Keystone, whenever you change the database, for example, from development to MySQL, or maybe you are in production and you want to change to some other engine, you have to perform the corresponding migrations that I talked about before to make it work. Regarding emails, by default, in a development environment, emails are just shown in the console, right, in the shell. But of course, you may want to use some SMTP server to send your emails in your production environments. So you have to set up this right at the settings file in Horizon. You have all the documentation here. You can also check our documentation to learn more about this, but this is where it is. Finally, we also recommend, so just to summarize a little bit, do run Horizon from Apache or something like that. And regarding Keystone, our recommendation is to set up it as a service, so that, as a service in Ubuntu, so in the operating system, so that you make sure that it is always up and running. We provide some sample file for doing so. You can write your own or use this one and enable the service afterwards. And also, something that we find really interesting in terms of security, and I wanted to point out, is that we just added support for, let's say, complex scenarios regarding cross-origin requests. Before we made this improvement, the only thing you could do was like having a whitelist of servers that could access, that could make cross-origin requests to Keyrock. And now we have another option, which is to allow a certain endpoint to any origin. So you have the two alternatives. So let's say that you want to enable some service of your own application or whatever, and you trust it and you want to give access to that to all the endpoints in Keyrock, you would place it in the whitelist. But on the other hand, if you have some endpoint in Keyrock that, because of your use case, you need to allow anyone access that endpoint, you can do it here. This is just a Django signal. It just works. And finally, I would like to give you just a quick hint on the administration tools we provide to Keyrock. So after you have it configured and it's working, we provide also some tools. And yeah, maybe, I don't know if you can see it correctly, but you can find it out in the documentation. We developed some command line interface tools to help you work with this. I actually, as a developer, I actually use a lot this. For instance, you have just IDM admin console, and you have a Python Keystone client console, which you can use just for administration purposes. So well, this was all from my side. Maybe, I don't know if you have any question. If not, or you can just ask them. And I would like to show you just a quick demo of Docker to show you how straightforward it is. But if you have any question, I want to ask you that now. It's okay for me. Yeah. Sorry? Ah, you mean? Oh, well, actually, yeah, I got it. That's a good question. But we don't have that. We don't have that. I mean, we provide support, but we wanted to make it straightforward so that you guys can do it. And we actually don't offer an installation service, do we? Right. So, some other question? Should I show you the Docker? Okay. Oh yeah. The what, sorry? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for that question. This is these tools, Bash script, Docker image, and Chef script, they are available in this generic repo I mentioned in the beginning, which is, let me move back. this one here, this is an entry point for issues, but also the installation tools and the administration tools. These command line interface tools are here. And also the Docker images in Docker Hub. So this is what I'm going to show you now. So just head on here, it's Chef Cookbook, Bash script, and Docker images over here. Yes? Yeah, that's, well, let me repeat that because maybe I didn't explain myself very clear, and I think that's an important question. Keyrock is the reference implementation of the identity management generic enabler, right? So Keyrock would be the whole component. And it's got two subcomponents, which are Horizon, which is the front end component, and then Keystone, which is the back end. So you have to, like, you can place them in separate machines, you can place them in the same machine, they are separate, and Keyrock would be like the whole component, let's say. Any question? Ah, okay. Okay, so I will just show you very quickly. Okay. So, I hope you guys can hear me. As I told you, okay, this is our GitHub. This is our documentation in Read the Docs, which you can access from FIWARE catalog also. And this is our image in Docker Hub. So you can get it from here, or you can get the image and build the container from scratch in your computer. That's up to you. And now I got my console here. I'll try to make it bigger. Okay. And I just downloaded the image from Docker Hub because here at the Congress Launch the connection is not real fast. So, but otherwise you can when you run this command, they will download the image right from Docker Hub. So you have all the documentation of how to use the Docker file in Docker Hub and also in our GitHub. But basically, if you want to ask a Docker run, let's say, not strange command. Let's see if the demo works. All right, so this is my Horizon logs here. And now I'll try to just from my host machine, localhost. By default, Horizon runs on the 8000 port, right? So this is the welcome page of Keyrock. It worked, and well, let me just log in. If I had more time, I would register and enable the account. But to make it quicker, I will just log in with the IDM account just to make it work. Remember that this is the account that it shouldn't be used like for logging in because it's the internal account that Horizon uses to perform admin requests to Keystone. So just log in. Seems like it worked. It prompts you with welcome to Keyrock. So this is what I wanted to show you. So let me just yes. Let me just move on to the last slide to just give a final overview of what we showed you today. We saw what is an IDM and why should I install one, and why should I install FIWARE Identity Management Generic Enabler. We just saw step-by-step installation and also installation tools to make the process smoother. We saw how to configure Keyrock, how to administrate Keyrock. So well, this is all from my side. I just would like to highlight too many ideas. I would like you guys to go out with them. First idea is that installation of Keyrock is pretty straightforward. We have, I mean, even step by step is rather simple from my point, as far as I'm concerned. It's true that I'm the one who made it, so maybe, but I think that's pretty straightforward. And number two, that we really appreciate your feedback because this is for you to use it. So whenever you feel that something it's not working or you cannot have it work, just contact us. You have many, many ways to do so. You can grab us in the corridor. You can come here now. You can come to Madrid to UPM and ask us also. So just feel free to do so, and thank you very much. And if you have any more questions, you can read that. Yeah. Yes, we have Stack Overflow. I didn't put in the slide. Maybe Álvaro can give you more details about that.
Yes, we have a channel a general channel in Stack Overflow, and we also have a kind of Stack Overflow in FIWARE. It is ask.fiware.org. This is just designed for FIWARE, so perhaps it's better to put the questions there. There we have labels for the different generic enablers and so on. So probably you will find a Keyrock label. You can attach it to the question, and we will attend it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, well, like Álvaro said before, depends on the use case. If you want to have your separate group of users, then yes.
Yes. If you want to have your separate group of users, and more important, if you want to manage this group of users by yourself, adding or removing permissions and so on, yes. But if you want to have users from the beginning, yeah, it's better.
Well, besides, if you will need to change some configuration in Keyrock, both in the front end or in the back end, if you use FIWARE Lab, I mean, it's us who do that, so you may not be able to do so. So you would need your own instance for that.
My personal recommendation is that if you are going to use external services and so on, and you don't matter so much for the identity by itself, you should start using the FIWARE Lab instance, okay? Because it's easier, and yeah, with just 2 configurations, you can start using it. And then if you finally are interested in it and you want to start managing your own users and so on, you can move to your own instance.
More questions? Yes. Users? In trial, yeah. Well, that has actually to do with access to cloud resources. So if you have a community account, you will be able to create computing resources in the cloud portal of FIWARE Lab. But that's why I was saying when I was explaining this duration of accounts, that unless you are interested in having your own infrastructure, if you deploy your own instance of Keyrock, you may not be using that part of functionality. Maybe Álvaro wants to add something.
No.
Yeah, that's how it works. Okay. Okay, so.
So thank you very much. And as Federico has said, we will be here around, so you can of course ask us anything. And yeah, that's all.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you
for coming.